Good evening, everybody. Maxime Bernier is in Toronto a week on Thursday, and he's doing a panel correcting political correctness. Maxime Bernier in Toronto. There are only 75 tickets available. Well, now 74. I've got mine, and you can pick yours up. Link is in the description. If you've got the afternoon off, it is at 2 in the afternoon, so that's May 2nd, next Thursday. It's been a little while since I've done a Maxime Bernier Twitter Roundup, so here we go. Maxime Bernier Twitter Roundup, starting now. He says, quote, "The only way to bring change is to have a government in Ottawa willing to do it. Equalization should not be a permanent welfare program for poorer provinces. The People's Party of Canada is the only one willing to reduce payments and reform the formula to make it fair for all provinces." And that's in reply to Scott Moe saying, "What do you think, Saskatchewan? Should our province join at J. Kenny and Alberta in holding a referendum on equalization? Wouldn't that be a headache for Justin Trudeau and his Liberals going into an election year? A referendum on equalization payments. I don't know if that would actually be organized in time before October. Likely not. Things like that take way too long. But it would still be a headache to be talked about. It's one of those things like, I don't know, threatening to take somebody to court but never actually doing it. Right, Justin? Right? Okay, back to the Maxime Bernier Twitter Roundup. Maxime Bernier says, quote, "The day after the National Assembly unanimously condemns pipelines, Francois Legault says that there are, quote, advantages to remaining in Canada. First of all, $13 billion in equalization. That's a good start. Is he completely oblivious to reality?" So this is Bernier putting himself on the other side of this, because I'm going to read Mr. Legault's statements from the Calgary Herald here, and it's interesting. Here's the second tweet in the stream. He says, "This is a terrible statement by Mr. Legault. He tells Westerners, send us big checks, but we won't help you to sell your dirty oil that funds it. As a Quebecer, I'm fed up with this scornful and divisive attitude on the part of our provincial politicians." And I like this statement because, well, here's Mr. Legault's statement. And Calgary Herald, link is in the description if you want to read it for yourself. And he says, well, the headline is, "Equalization, hockey are two of Legault's favorite things about Canada." Yeah, money's great, especially when it's made in other provinces and sent to you for free. Back to the article. Appearing before a legislature committee Wednesday, Legault was grilled by interim Parti Québécois leader Pascal Berube, sorry if I've got that wrong, about his attachment to Canada. Berube, whose party is committed to pulling Quebec out of Canada, sensed a vulnerability in Legault, who before founding the coalition Avenir Quebec, the CAQ, was a PQ cabinet minister pitching the merits of sovereignty. Why are you proud to be Canadian?" Berube asked several times as the premier skirted the question. Quote, "I am firstly proud to be a Quebecer," Legault finally replied. "I accept that Quebec is in Canada, and I think that there are advantages to remaining in Canada. First of all, the $13 billion in equalization. That's a good start. Next, well, there are social programs that exist in Canada. There are good hockey teams in Canada. There are advantages." Legault said ultimately he would like to reduce the amount of equalization Quebec receives from Ottawa by increasing Quebec's wealth. Quote, "I don't like being lumped in with the maritime provinces," he said. "I would prefer to be beside Ontario or the western provinces, but for that the economy needs to be has to be prioritized." So that's an interesting statement from the Premier of Quebec, and surprising, really. I agree with Bernier. What planet is he on? I thought separatism was settled. However, that said, I've seen lots of separatist comments from Saskatchewan and Alberta recently, so separatism really is on the rise, and who knows? I don't live in Quebec, so I don't know what's going on the ground there. I'm not sure. So separatism could have been bubbling since the 90s and John Chrétien days. Who knows? I don't, but that's me speculating. Back to Bernier. Bernier says, "I agree with at Brian Jean, Alberta. This vote simply shows the pipelines are not politically acceptable among provincial politicians, but a substantial proportion of Quebecers disagree. The PPC is the only one that can unite Albertans and Quebecers who favor prosperity." And I couldn't find this tweet. I went to Mr. Jean's Twitter account and I couldn't find it. So maybe it was on Facebook or something, but it looks, I don't know. I don't know where it was from. But all of that said, it's interesting, the pipelines. I wonder, and this is suggesting that a lot of politicians are not for Canadian oil, but a lot of the public are, both in Alberta and in Quebec. So it's interesting to see what will be needed to break that deadlock. It's interesting. Here is another. I saw this and I watched her speech. Miss Mckenna. Bernier says, "Liberal globalist fantasy to justify more taxes and more government control over our economy and our lives." And this is Catherine Mckenna talking about the Earthrise image. You know, there's no borders in the Earthrise image. We're all in this together, blah, blah, blah. And while that may be true, when some of us produce 1.6% of the Earth's greenhouse gas emissions, and others produce 25% and 15%. Cutting our emissions in half and destroying our economy doesn't make a lot of sense, Miss Mckenna. And putting in a carbon tax that doesn't actually reduce emissions doesn't make sense either. So all of your statements are kind of crazy. And so we're not going to watch this, but I've got the link in the description just in case you want to watch it. And I just can't listen to her talk. I just can't listen to her talk. I'm sorry. But the link is in the description if you want to hear her talk. But it's the same liberal drivel that they're trying to make this election about, and it's not going to be about that. It's going to be about not climate change, in my opinion, not fundamentally anyway. It's going to be about kitchen table issues, as they're called. It's going to be about jobs. It's going to be about housing. It's going to be about how does this initiative make my house or affording my house cheaper, because it just seems that all of my money is being sucked up in taxes. That's what I mean about kitchen table issues. It's not going to be about, while a lot of people may be talking about climate change, this election is going to be talking about things that are going to be affecting us in the short term, 3-5 years, rather than 10-100 years. Okay, back to the article, or back to Mr. Bernier. Sorry. Mr. Bernier says, quote, typical liberal hypocrisy. And he doesn't say it nearly as poorly as I just did. And this is in response to Patrick Moore tweeting. And if you don't know who Patrick Moore is, I've talked about him before, the former founder of Greenpeace. He says, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, his family vacation, emit as much CO2 as the average Canadian for an entire year. He just brought in a regressive carbon tax. We will pay for the carbon tax on 9,200 liters of jet fuel he used. And there's a CTV link, and I'm not going to go into that rabbit hole. But right, hypocritical, right? We're going to put a price on pollution, and we're going to make sure everybody pays it, including the Prime Minister, and taxes on the Prime Minister's travel, et cetera, et cetera. It's so tone deaf. Again, like everything Trudeau has done, it's tone deaf. Mr. Bernier says, quote, our armed forces should be hiring the most competent candidates to defend our country. Instead, they have to fill quotas based on gender and ethnicity. We were supposed to get rid of systemic discrimination. Instead, we've institutionalized it. Yes, thank you for being so succinct and saying that so clearly. I have had discussions with people, intelligent people whose opinions I respected formerly and not anymore, because you can point out this discrimination. You can point it out and say, listen, you're discriminating against this group that may be a majority group, but you're still saying everybody from that group is A, privileged, and B, should deal with this discrimination with a smile on their face and not say anything about it. If they say something about it, they're racist. What? Right? It makes no sense. Silencing people's ability to solve a problem does not help the problem get solved. It just makes the problem simmer under the surface. And sure, it's not any individual person's fault. This system has been unleashed from the universities or whatever, but we've got a system now, and I did a big video on this, that is institutionalizing the discrimination of men and saying, oh, sorry, that job's closed to men. Women, or anybody who identifies as a woman, can apply. Absolutely, sure. We'll get their application fast-tracked if we've got a woman who's interested in these jobs. But unfortunately, if you're a man, sorry, man, nope. Got a penis? Nope. And that skin, that's a little white skin. Sorry. That's not, we can't fill the quota with a white male. Sorry about that. We're full. But not for that female or whatever else. It's ridiculous, and it's terrible. And of course, there are people, and I want to point this out, anytime you see these numbers after a Twitter follower, you are engaging with a bot. And I think that Mr. Bernier engages with this bot to make a point, but I just wanted to let everybody else know, because I've had conversations with people like Aussie195062118, and let me tell you, they don't get the picture. I think it's willful that they don't understand the point you're trying to make. So anyway, it's likely a bot. And if it's not a bot, it's somebody with way too much time on their hands putting numbers after their name, but it's probably a bot. Anyway, Aussie195062118 says, and what makes you think women or people of color are not qualified? And Mr. Bernier fires back. Typical dishonest reply from diversity cultists. Let me explain this again. Women and members of minorities who are qualified don't need employment equity programs. Those who are not qualified should not be hired. No group privileges. Same rules for everyone. That is true fairness. And again, thank you, Mr. Bernier. I clearly did not say it as well as you just did. So there we go. And I agree with that. That is what we were told we were getting when we signed up for, well, when we were going through school, when people were saying everybody gets a fair shake, we take the best, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You hope to be the best. And sometimes you're not, but sometimes you're top 10% or whatever. And I'm getting off track. My point is, we shouldn't be making special rules for people by virtue of their skin color or where they come from in Canada. And the standards should apply to everyone. That's fair. That's fair. And that makes us stronger. That doesn't make us weaker. If the person can't meet the standard, then that person needs to go and work on themselves and get to the standard. The system shouldn't bow down to them and say, oh man, sorry, we made this standard, but we didn't realize you couldn't reach it. Let's cut it in half and you guys try again. No, that's not how things work. That's not how things should work. Unfortunately, right now it is how things work. Back to Maxime Bernier. He says, quote, "We've received requests from media and one lobby group to explain what our party is doing to attain gender parity among our candidates. Below is the answer. Note that we chose 2 women for the 4 by-elections, not to have parity, but because they were the best candidates." And here's the response, and I'll put it into, it's just an image, and a link to the image will be in the description. "The People's Party wishes to be as representative as possible of the Canadian population, but our main concern is the selection of competent, motivated candidates who share our principles and our policy proposals, and who will be able to defend them well, and that whenever their gender, ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation." And that whatever their gender, ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation, blah. "We oppose any form of quota or positive discrimination on the basis of these categories. We therefore have no internal program to promote the selection of women candidates and ensure gender parity among our candidates. It will be up to the members of each constituency to choose the best candidate." Yay! I applaud that as somebody going through the process currently. So I'm glad that there's no person with a leg up by virtue of their sex or ethnicity or religion or sexual orientation. Could you imagine if somebody said, "Ooh, yeah, you're a little Christian, and we've got this, doesn't matter, anybody, Buddhist, we've got this Buddhist was the least offensive other religion I could think of. We've got this Buddhist here, and he's, well, we like non-offensive religious people, so here you go. That's better than, atheism or Christianity or whatever. I don't know if atheism counts as a religion. I don't want to get into that topic. I'm just pointing it out. Twitter's being strange. All of the tabs I have open are taking longer and longer to load. Anyway, Maxime Bernier says, "Several towns and villages in Beauce are affected by flooding. I'm with security staff in Valley Junction," sorry if I've got that wrong, "to survey the damage." And I just wanted to show you. I mean, not to say that you don't have to do this. It's, as far as I know, not written into your job description as an MP that if your district, if your region floods, you have to be there on the ground to make sure that things are happening that should be happening and lend your weight if appropriate. I don't think that's in the instruction booklet. And that's what a leader does, makes a decision and does it. And in my opinion, if I've got a member of parliament, somebody I've elected to represent our area, I hope they're at stuff like this, because this is the important stuff, right? Kissing babies and being at fall fairs and barbecues and things like that. That is the stuff of not pandering, but stuff that you do as a politician because you have to get out there and meet people, because you have to meet people to talk about this stuff. It's important. But this is the stuff of leadership. This is the stuff has gone sideways, and I had a dozen things to do today, and I guess I'm doing them tonight because this is more important. That's leadership, okay? And that's what I appreciate about this. Justin Trudeau would still be walking around with a paper bag on his head asking where the bong went. I don't mean to denigrate marijuana smokers. I am a marijuana smoker. So that's just meant to be a little tongue-in-cheek, because even if Justin Trudeau smoked marijuana, I don't think that even comes close to explaining what went wrong with him. Okay, back to Mr. Bernier. "They've all been completely silent. No fancy analysis of wording and statements, and they won't spend the coming weeks hysterically denouncing Christianophobia and warning about the Islamist threat. This massacre just doesn't fit their narrative. Disgusting hypocrites." And this is in response to a question: "How many of the journalists who demanded Maxime Bernier make a statement about Christchurch are demanding he condemn the attacks on Christians in Sri Lanka. And so interesting that nobody's looking for a statement on this. Here's another one from Mr. Bernier. And I looked at the actual job posting. We'll look at it together in a minute. But I thought this was so sad. So sad. I want adults working in our government. I don't want people who need to be coddled this way. Bernier says, quote, Ottawa is going nuts. To attract the Harry Potter generation, government is looking for Gryffindors, Ravenclaws, Hufflepuffs, and Slytherins to join the Hogwarts in a wizardry position. A starting salary of $57,000 for a magical career. This is not a joke. And I actually saw this when it first was posted in August, and I thought it was a joke. The URL, and I don't want to pull this out of the tab thing because it's been behaving strangely, but the URL will be posted, but it seems like a very long address. So the first time I saw it, I thought, I not that I can't verify this, but it seems so silly that I'm not going to report on this. But upon further reading, man, this is incredible. So here's the work environment. It says, quote, are you a Gryffindor, brave, loyal, courageous, and adventurous? A Ravenclaw, wise, creative, clever, and knowledgeable? A Hufflepuff, hardworking, dedicated, fair, and patient? Or a Slytherin, resourceful, ambitious, determined, and crave leadership? Okay, hold on. The Slytherins, if you read Harry Potter, the Slytherins were like hated the whole time. They had a dungeon bedroom. They had to like go down into the basement, right? And Malfoy is ultimately redeemed, I guess, after that weird Voldemort hug in the seventh one. But he sold everybody out. He was ready to kill them. Oh goodness. Anyway, I don't want to spoil it. He was ready to do some bad things. Slytherin, you can't be like, oh yeah, if you're a Slytherin, please come and work in our government. This is just read all 7 books, Mr. Person who's writing these job ads, and really put thought into what you're saying here, okay? You don't want Slytherins working in the Canadian government. They're already all over leadership. It's terrible. Okay, back to the job ad. No matter what house you belong to, Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat has various teams that we would love to use our sorting hat to place you into. We are looking for strong and motivated candidates that are interested in making an impact on Canadian citizens. With our Talent Manager program, we will help you grow, learn, and further develop your magical career with the public service. Come and let TBS become your home away from home. Oh my goodness. The intent in the process, we will conduct the first random selection of applicants, also known as wizards, on April 8th, 2019. Therefore, we'd like if you would like to increase your chances of being considered in the first group, please ensure you submit your application by April 7th. Blah. Really? Adults. We need adults, not children, running our government and doing all of this work. The last people I want are the people who think they're running the Ministry of Magic from Harry Potter 5, because that didn't work out so well. Read the books. Okay, this is the last bit. Again, from the top. At the beginning, I mentioned that Mr. Bernier would be in Toronto next week on May 2nd on Thursday, and Lauren Chen will be there. So I'm excited or Chen, I'm sorry if I've got that wrong, Lauren. I'm excited to meet you. You can tell me to my face that I got it wrong, and I don't know if I'll meet you. I guess I'm excited to watch you on the panel. So she's tweeting, and Mr. Bernier is retweeting. Exciting news. I'm happy to announce that on May 2nd in Toronto, I'll be on a panel with Maxime Bernier and others discussing correcting political correctness in Canada. People's Party of Canada is hosting the event, and you can get your tickets here. So there you go. Tickets will be in the description in multiple places. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. I've got some Game of Thrones to watch. I hear hot pie is, he makes somebody a pie after. Spoiler alert. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out the People's Party of Canada.ca and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.